Welcome to week 4 of Games for Learning and Simulation. This week, we're going to be focusing pretty exclusively on simulations and simulations designed for children specifically. Now, most of the things we're going to be talking about are things created by Will Wright, SimCity, Spore, and some other things that he'll reference in a talk that we're going to watch. So one of the things I want to talk about in detail is the game SimCity. The SimCity game has evolved quite a bit and spawned an entire genre of city building games. And one of the things that's interesting about SimCity is that it allows you not only to create a city, but to manage a city from the point of view of the mayor. So you have to balance things like residential population versus number of jobs available versus commercial spending opportunities. You have transportation costs, you have tax revenue, and all these different things that you have to keep in balance so that your city stays viable. If you don't have enough police departments, then crime goes up, population and satisfaction goes down, and then people move away from your city, your tax revenue drops, your ability to build new police departments is reduced. And so there's this constant chicken and egg problem of how do you keep your city thriving under all these different variables. Um, and as the game has evolved over the years, the complexity of the simulation has increased, but a lot of the core uh, ideas of it have remained. The balance between residential, commercial, and industrial. The fact that if you build more industrial locations, you have an increase in pollution and crime, but you also have an increase in jobs. And so there's always this constant trade off. And one of the things that's exciting about this is that I've seen kids actually take this game, play it a bunch, and then get a copy of their city budget and look and say, wow, look at how much we're spending on the police. Look how much we're spending on schools. Look how much we're spending on road construction. I would manage this differently. Why would they do the construction project like this? They should have built the roads over here. And so kids become kind of these self taught civil engineers, armchair civil engineers, I guess, where they start analyzing from their experience in the game how those principles are applied in real life. And that's really what we want in a simulation for kids is that we want not just to simulate something they could never do, but to simulate something that's real and happening around them that they can then take those principles and learn from what the real world does. Now, as far as things to do this week, the SimCity discussion, read that in detail. Watch this talk by Will Wright, who's the creator of SimCity and The Sims and Spore. And this is him talking about Spore and why this is kind of the culmination of a lot of the work he did and why he thinks that that is such an interesting game and why simulations are so interesting for children and the educational principles behind those. And then you're going to be playing, if you don't have access to SimCity, and I should qualify and say SimCity Build It doesn't really count because it's a more of a microtransaction cash grab that lacks a lot of the simulation aspects. So if you have an access to a version of SimCity other than SimCity Build It, or if you have access to one of the other games in that genre, such as Pocket City or Cityscapes, you can play those. If not, there's a free SimCity clone called Micropolis JS that you can play as well. Um, you'll want to make sure that you read through the instructions here, especially if you've never played SimCity. And then this is just a very low budget version of SimCity. So you can play that online just to get a feel for how it works. But again, if you have access to the actual SimCity game or one of the later versions other than this one, then play that. Pocket City is a fantastic game. It's a very modern iOS game, and I think it's available on Android as well. That kind of ignores the microtransaction aspect of later SimCity variations. So as you play that, start thinking about what it is about that game that helps you to learn and simulate real life. And then I want you to think back to other simulations you may have played in the past and ask yourself, what was the purpose of the game? How did it help you to understand some aspect of real life? Where did it differ? And then what did you enjoy about that game? And then if you were in charge of that game and you could make some change to it, what would you change and why? And then our write up assignment for this week is after you're done playing the SimCity game or the variation on it, what do you think makes that genre, the city building genre, so popular that SimCity could spark dozens of sequels an entire genre of game, the city building game, with games like Pocket City and Cityscapes, City Skylines, all these different things that have come after it. And what do you think is lacking? If there's something, if you could create a cityscape game, a city builder simulation game, what would you do differently and why? So those are the two assignments for this week as far as submissions, and then make sure you've read through this. And if you get a chance to play Spore, if you can track down a copy of Spore by Will Wright, fantastic game, really interesting concept. So give that a look as well. All right. As always, if you have any questions, reach out on Slack or through email.